Hey, bread lovers. Tired of juggling multiple jars of starter and worrying about keeping it alive between baking? Today, I'm going to show you how to make sourdough with dehydrated starter. No constant maintenance, no hassle. It's a simple way to bake delicious sourdough without all the stress. Let's get started. Day one is about as simple as it gets. You take a half a teaspoon of honey and some water, and you dissolve the honey into the water. And then you sprinkle in all of the dehydrated sourdough starter, and you let it sit for about a half an hour covered. And then you can see it's a little bit granulated still, but you throw all your flour in and you mix it up. And when you mix it up, you want to whip a lot of air into it. So whip it for about a whole minute, and then after that minute you're going to cover it up and you're going to let it set overnight. I looked at it on day two. I could tell that there were no bubbles in there. This thing had no life. So I decided, instead of feeding it one time that day, I decided I would split up the feeding and feed it half the water and half the flour in the morning, and then the same thing in the afternoon. Now, in the afternoon, you could see here that there are no real bubbles in this thing, and I was hoping there would be some, and I was hoping there would be life in it, but there wasn't, so I fed it the other half and let it sit overnight. What happened to day three? Nothing happened at day three. So I just let it sit on the table overnight until day four, and look how beautiful it is. All I did was add some whole wheat flour to it and refrigerated it overnight. Day five is the day I made the dough, but I will tell you this: if the starter on day three was as active as it was on day four, I probably would have just moved right along with it. But you can see I pulled it out of the refrigerator and it was really cold, added cold water to it and the flour. And then I put it in the mixing bowl, kind of stirred it around so the flour wouldn't shoot up when I was mixing it. And I put it on the mixer for 8 minutes. And I let it go at medium speed. And after 8 minutes, I stopped the mixer and I added some salt to it. And then I let it go for another 2 minutes. And I was trying to get the dough to pull away from the edge, so I sped up the mixer just a little bit. Now I put all this in another bowl and let it rest for a half an hour. And if you're asking me, hey, is that a shower cap you put over that? Absolutely, it works perfect. After a half an hour, I was going to pull the dough like this. See how I'm pulling it? I wet my hand so the dough doesn't stick to my hand. Otherwise, my hands would be full of that dough. There's no question. I made a little ball and covered it back up with that shower cap and let it sit for a half an hour. Then I did the same thing, and I just kind of pulled the dough. I wet my hand so it doesn't stick to it, and I made it into a nice little ball and covered it up and let it sit for another half hour. After that, I pulled it out, put it on the board with a little bit of flour, and I decided it's time to shape the loaf. Finally, after 5 days. I will tell you, it does take time to get that soured flavor and that smell, that wonderful smell, into the dough. So it's worth it for me. You can see how I'm shaping the dough here. But I want to tell you about taking time to make the bread, because when you take the time and you spend the days that it takes, it didn't take me that much time out of each day. I mean, to feed this thing takes just seconds, basically. So maybe a minute or so. So it's not much time at all, but boy, is it really worth it. And the crust on this thing, you wait till you see it. It's going to be incredible. I'll put a link in the comments where you can go watch how I made my dehydrated starter. It's a pretty simple process. So with this dough, you can see I wrapped it up in this silicone mat and put it in the bags to keep the moisture out and refrigerated it overnight. Day 6. Day 6. That's the day I baked the bread, That's the day that we ate the bread. Oh my gosh, was it really good. If you're wondering why I put the ice in the oven and why I'm scoring the bread is going to rise when it hits that hot stone. If you didn't have steam in the oven to allow the dough to stretch, it would just crack on the top. So the ice keeps steam in the oven and it keeps moisture in the oven so that doesn't happen. Look how beautiful this bread is. Hear how it kind of sounds hollow when I tap on it? This is perfect. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a great week and enjoy.